Hello again, Rochester. This is Michael Wojcik with our town-based look at what is going on at the state capitol. As we get further into the session, more and more bills are introduced. Some of those bills will go nowhere. Some of them may get broad bipartisan support and become law. We're going to look at a few of those things that maybe have the potential for some movement and what it might mean for the city of Rochester today. Probably the biggest news in the last week is that the Minnesota estimated budget surplus for the biennium has ballooned to $9.25 billion, a very substantial number. So there's a lot of talk by all parties about how some of that might go back to taxpayers. In general, what's coming out of the Senate right now is an elimination of all taxes on Social Security income that already is exempted for folks that are making about $2,000 a month or less in retirement, but this would be for irrespective of what your other income might be. In addition, the Senate GOP has supported reducing the lowest tax rate. Now, on the other side, Governor Walz has proposed sending rebate checks to individuals and families, and that number went up substantially with the newest budget estimate. Also, what's been discussed is there might be some middle ground in terms of lowering tax rates or changing some of the tax structures, but making sure that those benefits are flowing to just the lowest and middle income earners and not necessarily the wealthiest. We'll see where it goes, but with a $9.25 billion surplus, there's probably going to be some action on this front. Another topic that appears to have bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate is an extension or to make permanent the historic tax credit. This is something we've actually seen the benefit here in Rochester. Downtown, the Conley Mass building where you'd find Blue Duck Restaurant actually benefited from these tax credits, and it's an important tool to help preserve historic properties because they can be quite costly to preserve and maintain. Additionally, one of the clauses that's being discussed is allowing the tax credit to be payable in 1 year instead of the 5, which would make it even more effective. Look for some action on that this year. Representative Feist from New Brighton has introduced language that would tie the per pupil funding amount in our schools to inflation. This is something that school districts, including Rochester, have struggled with for a long time. Since 2003, they've actually seen the amount of funding per person coming from the state get eaten away by inflation, and I think we particularly understand recently what inflation can do to folks. She estimates that about $800 less per student is coming in 2023 relative to 2003 based on just inflation eating away the per pupil amount. By tying it to inflation, that becomes a relatively stable figure over time. A proposed ban on conversion therapy is currently making its way through the House. This has been discussed in Minnesota before, but it's never actually passed. It's passed in about 20 states, including some very conservative states like Utah. And places like Utah rejected on the basis of being fiscally irresponsible to put resources into something that is viewed as futile and destructive by professional associations like the American Association of Pediatrics and a number of others. But in addition to that, probably the biggest outcome that we've seen around the country is that conversion therapy is very destructive to the mental health of youth. UCLA Law reported as much as 2 times the suicide rate for kids that have gone through conversion therapy. This has become pretty widely accepted in the medical community that it's not something that has medical value. So we'll see if there's enough support throughout the House and Senate to have that bill passed this year. An area where there continues to be some contention, but we might still see action this year just based on immense needs, is whether or not Minnesota becomes part of the Interstate Nursing Compact. What this compact does is effectively lets nurses who are certified in one state go practice in another state. In other words, nurses from other areas could come work in Minnesota and vice versa. It's something that the Mayo Clinic is strongly behind. It's being supported in the Senate by Rochester Senator Carla Nelson, and some nursing and labor groups are opposed to it because it does have the potential to eat away at labor standards. We do understand in this community and really around the country, healthcare personnel, they've been through a lot the last couple of years. There are big shortages, so even if it's not the full compact, expect to see some kind of action addressing some of these staffing shortages still this year. When you have a legislative session going on, there's more going on there than we can possibly hope to cover in a short segment like this, but if there's something you hear that might affect Rochester, I'd love to hear about it. Certainly we want to focus on those things that are going to affect us here in the community.